We are back once again with the Villain Spotlight's HHN countdown of the scariest icons in Halloween Horror Nights history. Who has made it to number 8? Stay tuned. Hit the button. Let's get started. Hey there, hi there, ho there, Andrew here, the horror host of Generations X, Y, and Z inside Davis Manor, and you might notice that my voice has changed a little bit. That is because I am sick. Not just mentally, but physically as well right now. So here we are, number 8 out of the top 11 of the scariest Halloween Horror Night icons. But before we begin, let me put this up on the screen. I would like to give a big old shout out to all the patrons on this channel's Patreon page. For those that don't know what patrons are, they help decide on what direction the channel is going. Click the link above to learn more on how you can join the show, or the link in the description box, or the link at the end of the video, and help steer this channel and possibly get rewarded with some free merchandise in an awesome journey we can share together. Now, if you were starting this countdown on this video, let me pause for self-promotion. Go ahead and click the link above. It is a playlist of the complete countdown. Well, not really complete at the time of this recording because we're doing number 8 right now, but by the time that you click it, we might have moved on, or we might have completed the whole list by that time, but you get the point. It starts at 11, and it works its way down. Now, to recap the criteria of how I made this list, the rules are pretty simple. Only icons from Orlando, because I've never visited any of the other icons from any other area, so I can't really put them into the mix. It wouldn't be right. Also, only original properties. So that means HHN's Universal Creative Collab had to create the character. They can't use intellectual properties. And also, the character has to be designed to headline the event. No supporting characters whatsoever. So, with that, let's go ahead and continue with number 8 of the scariest Halloween Horror Night icons in HHN history. And that would be Eddie. Eddie, who is arguably my favorite icon, was the original event icon for Halloween Horror Nights number 11 in 2001, and was supposed to be featured in his own house, which was called Run. However, due to the terror attacks on September 11th in 2001, Eddie was pulled and replaced by the previous Halloween Horror Night event icon, known as Jack the Clown. Run stayed as a house, just without the Eddie origin storyline. Side note, Eddie, like most slasher villains, have had many names and origin stories, and it really falls on the fan, basically, on which one they want to follow, even though Universal Studios has changed Eddie to have a canon origin, but more on that in a moment. Eddie's original name was Edgar Sawyer, with the allusion to Leatherface and his Sawyer family, yet it has been said that Eddie's conceptual design was called Edgar Dice Slay. Someone in Universal Creative must have been an Andrew Dice Clay fan. But the last name that is given to Eddie now is Schmidt, making Eddie the younger brother of Jack Schmitt, aka Jack the Clown. And as far as Eddie's backstory goes, it's as varied as his names. Eddie, when known as Edgar Sawyer, had the background of being a person that was absolutely obsessed with horror films of the 80s, something that I can relate to. Edgar enjoyed the subgenre of slashers, focusing on films that had chainsaws. You know, movies like Evil Dead 2, Texas Chainsaw Massacre 2, even though one was made in the 70s, I'm sure that was an influence, plus Motel Hell, Pieces, and Hollywood Chainsaw Hookers, which starred Gunnar Hansen, who was the original Leatherface. The house that Edgar Sawyer was supposed to be in was called Run, and it had a unique feature where the scare actors were able to move the wall panels back and forth and change the house maze while people were going through it. This house was tied to his backstory, in which Edgar, when younger, built a haunted house by himself. The neighborhood kids, via a group of teens, set fire in the trailer park that Edgar lived in, and he was trapped in his own haunted attraction. This fire, albeit a prank, was not supposed to hurt anyone, but disfigured Edgar's face and hands, giving him severe burns over his body for life. Edgar would later on build Run, using his unorthodox construction skills and making it a perverted, twisted game show where the people that entered the house would have to escape torture devices and other chainsaw wielders like himself. The rules were simple. You escape, you win, you live. You don't, well, you don't. And like I said, after the 9/11 change made by Universal Studios Orlando, Edgar Sawyer went away, was put on the shelves, and he would star in later houses with the alternative name of Eddie Schmidt. Eddie Schmidt would show back up in the houses, but this time was retconned to be Jack the Clown's younger brother, donning clown makeup that was similar to Jack's that hid his burns and scars. He appeared in some houses like Horror Night Nightmares, Run, Hostile Territory, Jack Presents Monsters and Mayhem, and Run, Blood, Sweat, and Fears. Horror Night Nightmares showed up in Halloween Horror Nights number 14, What's Your Breaking Point, in 2004. The house had icons of the director, Jack the Clown, the caretaker, and Eddie. Eddie's part of the house was at the end where you had to escape his crew of chainsaw crazies that led out of the house in what people thought was a safe area for one final scare. 2 years later, in 2006, for Halloween Horror Nights Sweet 16, Eddie showed up in Run, Hostile Territory. This house was based loosely off the movie Hostel and was given a backstory that Eddie ran a torture house business. This is where individuals would, for a fee, torture, dismember, and kill innocents. Cash and credit accepted. People would go through the house seeing individuals doing their nastiest as the story progressed, only to find out that Eddie didn't like loose ends, so he and his crew would kill anyone left standing after the paying customer was done, including the paying customers, which meant that guests would have to run out of the house, being chased by Eddie himself. Eddie would make his way back in 2015 for 2 house showings. The first one was at the end of Jack's Presents 25 Years of Monsters and Mayhem. At the end of the house, when people thought they were in the safe area, they would be attacked by Eddie himself, or Meaty Meats alternatively. Meaty was the mascot from the 2009 house called Leave It to Cleaver. Also in 2015, at Halloween Horror Nights number 25, there was a house called Run, Blood, Sweat, and Fears. And this was an homage to the house that Eddie built, I guess you could say. It had a few houses that were blended together, and if you really want a great description of the house, let me pause for self-promotion. The link above is one video that I made a little bit ago, and it is about why Run, Blood, Sweat, and Fears was the superior house for Halloween Horror Nights number 25. Now, I could be a little bit biased in that since I was in the house as one of the scare actors, but you can get the full backstory of the house and basically a couple of little hidden Easter eggs in there, even stuff that people that worked the house didn't even know was in there. It's very informative and entertaining, might I add. In the Run, Blood, Sweat, and Fears house, Eddie showed up for a couple of days at the end of the house as a surprise scare and a nod to all the Halloween Horror Night veterans and fans that knew of Eddie's original roots. All of these entries are the Eddie Schmidt version, where Eddie was born during the late 1800s at Shady Brook Rest Home and Sanitarium with his brother Jack. They could be spotted in the house Body Collectors Recollections in HHN 25. Now, I'm not really sure how the storyline of him being obsessed with 1980s slasher films and living in a trailer park work with the storyline that he was born in the late 1800s, since he would be like 100 years old when all this stuff happened. But hey, I mean, you go with what you know, right? The last thing to say about Eddie is, while he still was being conceptualized, probably during the Edgar Dice Slay days, Eddie, who had his own catchphrase of, "I see you," was supposed to kill Jack the Clown during Halloween Horror Nights 11. They weren't brothers then, and the storyline was that Eddie didn't like Jack because Jack relied on supernatural abilities. This was going to lead a war between Jack and the Killer Clowns versus Eddie and the Chainsaw Drill Team, and the tagline was, "No more clowning around." So since Eddie never got a chance to headline, even though he was supposed to, and because he had many incarnations and names to go with him, he ends up in our number 8 spot. So do you agree with me or disagree with me? Go ahead and leave a comment down below, and remember, like, share, subscribe, plus hit that bell icon so you get notified the moment I upload, and I will see you in the next video.